I'm Trish.
And I'm Brandy.
And you're listening to episode 12 of
Connected Conversations. This is your go-to space where international teachers, leaders, and parents like us get together for real talk, real tips, and sharing tools to thrive abroad in the international schools world.
Between us, Brandy and I have been doing this international teaching gig for nearly 40 years across 4 continents and in 8 countries, and soon to be more.
Woo.
And working with more types of school curricula and styles than we can count.
And that's exactly why we're thrilled to welcome a very special guest today, an international educator and leader with over 25 years of experience across 7 countries. Kirsten has helped countless teachers, schools, and families navigate the world of international education with confidence, purpose, and heart.
That's right. And today we want to help you understand what schools are really looking for today in their teachers, and some of the trends shaping international education right now, and how you can stand out in this ever-evolving global landscape. Today's episode is part of our Insider Voices series, where we share real stories from international educators, leaders, and parents.
And we're so excited to introduce you to Kirsten Durward, an international educator and a leader with over 25 years of experience across 7 countries. Not only was she an international student herself, she's gone on to serve in many international roles such as head of primary, curriculum and professional development coordinator, and learning coach. Kirsten is passionate about using data, collaboration, and coaching to help students and teachers grow.
Kirsten also is an educational influencer. Oh, that's a term now, who's built thriving online learning communities for teachers around the world, including one recognized by UNESCO for its global impact. She also creates global events such as the upcoming Inquiry Educator Summit, which will go live on the 7th of February, 2026.
Most recently, though, she works with schools around the world on improving teaching and learning, everything from assessment-based practice, hands-on inquiry, to innovation leadership.
I first came across her as the moderator of the International Schools Job and Recruitment Chat group on Facebook, where she gives great advice and links people together around the world. So whether this is your first job abroad or your 5th, we know that the insight that Kirsten will share today will be super exciting and super valuable.
All right, so get ready to take some notes. You're going to want to as we dive into the expansion of the international education sector and some key trends to be aware of.
It's time to get connected.
Hi, Kirsten. Thank you so much for joining us. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, like who you are and your international experiences teaching abroad?
Well, as it says in my search biography, first of all, I should say thank you for having me, and it's delightful to meet you both.
Great to have you.
But yeah, as it says in my search biography, my first experience of international education was in a bush school in Kenya when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
So my stepfather was a civil engineer, and he was involved in building the dams on the Tana River in northern Kenya in the 1960s and 70s. So after he married my mum in Nairobi, I went up and lived in the work camp, and we had a prefabricated schoolroom, and they brought over Australian teachers, which is why, although I'm Scottish, I have vowel sounds that are A, E, I, O, and U.
Wow, nice.
Because I was taught to read by Australians. So from there, my parents moved to Geneva. So I went to the International School of Geneva for a short time. And thereafter, we were in Bahrain at St. Christopher's, in Abu Dhabi at the Al Kubayrat School, which is now known as BSAC. And then at Campion School in Greece is where I did my GCSEs before returning to the UK. Well, those days they were called O-levels. So I'm an international educated person.
Wow.
And after I did my first degree, I was sort of rooting around, and I was working a lot in tourism and hotels. And I thought I really need to do something that's using my capacities a bit more. So I looked into both education and the foreign service. But I decided I didn't want to be a mouthpiece. I wanted to be an influencer, and I wanted to have more flexibility of choice in where I went. So I always wanted to go back to Africa because I just adored it so much as a child. But my first post, I landed up in a bilingual school, the Anglo-Colombiano, in Bogota in Colombia was my first international post in 1996.
Wow.
So nearly 30 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
And since then I've been through quite a few schools. Was very disappointed the school I joined in Uganda didn't take on the PYP. We looked at it in 1999, but the other teachers who were very English rejected it in favor of the then English national curriculum. So I joined Istanbul International School and joined the IB as a teacher in 2001. My first PYP coordinatorship to bring the PYP back to the competitor school in Uganda, which is now known as ISU, in 2004. So I've been really working with the IB ever since.
Wow.
And what is it that's kept you inspired in the international teaching realm with all of these experiences across different countries? Like, what keeps you going with it?
So every experience is different and you change as you get older. So, when I first started, I was just excited to be out in the world. What could I contribute? What could I learn? It was adorable to learn Spanish and to learn to dance salsa. And then as I kind of went forward, I realized that I needed to make money. So I started looking for more, professional schools where I could save money. I got more interested in PD. I then got interested in leadership, but my leadership interest is very much more about developing teacher pedagogy. So that then became like a real focus to me, and it became less about the location and more about the type of school and the opportunity. Yeah. And now that I don't work for one school, I work with a lot of different schools and educators across the world. It's really that. What's shifted a lot for me is the type of people that are going into international education. So a huge focus for me at the moment is supporting people from the global majority to make contacts and network and showcase what they're capable of and gain opportunities to work internationally, so that we really are, it's not lip service on the diversity front, but it's really genuinely looking for talent. And of course, not everybody who contacts and who's interested is able to contribute in the way they might like to, and so there's a lot of different routes that I try to guide people towards. But it's those two things. It's developing teacher skill in the classroom, which is what I do with schools, and developing people's careers internationally, but from a really much more diverse range of people than I think most people are aware of.
Wow. Oh, that's fantastic.
Man, you have worked with such a diverse amount of people. You've been to so many different places. It's really incredible. Yeah. Would you say that any of the countries challenged you the most or changed you the most as an educator?
Well, challenge and change are two different things.
That is true.
So, India probably challenged me the most. The countries that changed me the most were definitely Uganda and Sudan, both for very similar reasons, that I was forced to kind of confront who I was as a person as well as an educator. And the opportunities in those countries to connect with the local population, but also the international network of aid workers and diversify your connections beyond the educator population were just enormous. And Uganda taught me gratitude, and Sudan taught me resilience.
Wow.
Ugh.
India, I just really struggled with the noise, the pollution, but also the way in which my Indian colleagues were treated by the school. And I found it to be reprehensible to be working in a school where a head called us into a meeting the first week of joining the school and told us we were earning 8.5 times as much as our Indian colleagues, and he expected us to deliver. That was so shocking to me, and I was very mature in my career at that point. I was already in my late 40s, and that was such a surprise to me.
Yep.
And it was hard to raise up those people's voice and raise up those people's professional growth in the environment that they were held in. So that has become a sort of side effect for me now, is like helping Indian educators getting out and getting more opportunities to showcase what they can do.
I think that's something Brandy and I have both encountered working in a lot of bilingual schools, specifically here in the Czech Republic for her. But I know, like, when I've worked in Malaysia or Thailand and been in schools where you know that you're making much more than the local contingent, but then you're relying on the local staff to do so much work for you. You know, like they do all the translation, they do all the organization of things, and they're such valuable pieces of the puzzle and undervalued in so many ways. So that really speaks to me, that comment. So,
so they have the institutional knowledge, they have the cultural knowledge, they support you so generously in so many ways. And, it was hard in that particular school for me because I couldn't bring the change that I wanted to just because of the behavior of the senior management.
Yep. Yeah. How long did you stay in that role, if I can ask?
I just lasted the year.
Yeah. I've been in those. That was me for the Emirates way back when I was.
I'm still in contact with a large number of my former colleagues, and a lot of them have either moved on or I've been able to coach them in different ways. But
fantastic.
It was just I couldn't be part of leadership in that environment.
Yeah.
So in your opinion then, and it sounds like it has probably changed through your career, what makes a great international school?
So it is very varied. And I think what we have to recognize, first of all, is that the international school sector has changed so much. I mean, definitely since I was a child, but more so since I joined it. So the really, truly, truly great international schools are the older, more established international schools who were parent established, and they were established really with very holistic missions for educating internationally. And nowadays we see a great growth in brand-driven expansion and the more economic model of money-making, private ownership and corporate ownership. So when you understand that probably about 40% of international schools right now are owned by investment funds,
right?
It's quite shocking.
Right.
So within that, there is still good leadership, and there is, there's diverse, like the International Schools Partnership is a pretty strong brand, and they are very dedicated to the student experience. And I think for me, that's the first line, is how dedicated is the school to actually improving the student experience and actually developing learning. So I learned a lot from Kevin Bartlett, who you probably know. But I met Kevin years and years ago in Africa, and I was privy to a keynote that he gave at the Association of International Schools in Africa. And he asked us all to consider what was our mission in our school and to turn to our neighbours. And of course, most people couldn't remember it. It was all, something to do with international citizenship and global action and
thinking.
And he stood up and he said, at the International School of Brussels, our mission is make learning better for every child. And we all went, yeah, of course, that's our mission too. Sorry. So it was just a moment for me where I was like, what are we actually doing here?
Yeah.
And so that's when I sort of coined the term learning focused. That's what it's a great international school will be learning focused, that genuinely committed to the student experience. Then they will also be educator focused. So they're looking for great educators. And I know there are limitations on that countries require certain qualifications or certain levels of experience but there's also a lot of hoo-ha on our sector, and there's a lot of networking, and there's a lot of people in positions because they can talk a good talk.
Or they know someone, right? They get in because they know someone who knows someone.
They play golf. They have a drink with the head. But they're very good at talking the talk. And, I met a leader early on in my career who horrified me because previously I'd had really good leaders. And this man was such a pontificator, and he was so self-obsessed. It was unreal.
I think I worked for him right after you.
I was like, what's going on here? And we do, like, if we're honest, we do still have the old boys network. So one of the things that I try to do is I get to get good people to show who they are, because there's people who are walking the walk, but they don't know how to communicate it. And there are people who are talking the talk and they're getting hired all over the place, but they're not able to deliver. So it's educator so it's student focused, learner focused, educator and education focused. So it's schools that hire for good practitioners and then invest in continuing to develop them and supporting them. So those are the two most important things for me. People talk a lot about the international diversity of the student body, but nowadays that's a practical impossibility in most circumstances. And also, to be honest with you, a lot of people don't really understand international diversity and they misjudge it. I worked in Thailand in a very internationally diverse school, but it might not have been apparent to most people's eyes because a lot of them were Asian, but they came from 14 different countries in Asia.
Wow.
And I think, and it's the same in Africa. You will get international students from vast numbers of African nations. It doesn't mean you're not internationally diverse. And I think people confuse that. So I think for me, it's less about being internationally diverse and more about being culturally appreciative. So because even within a country, you have so many different cultures and so many different perspectives, and that you're actually, never mind the majority or the minority, are you just culturally appreciative and culturally inclusive within a school? So those are the three things that I really look for in a great international school. But before I end, I would just like to add a little bit about the finances. Because it's abhorrent at the moment that so many schools and companies are paying teachers below the point of existence in a country and not empowering them to provide for their future or their family's future. So, I've never predicated for high package, but you have to be able to do your job well and to be paid a more than living wage. And any school that is not doing that just shouldn't be an option for anybody.
I know, I just went through my own contract negotiation, and it was very challenging for me in this senior management position to advocate for myself, because I don't like necessarily doing that, because I kind of feel the proof is in the pudding. Come see what I do. So see the, but we have to become these mini marketers but back it up with truth behind it. So I think that's a new learning curve for so many teachers out there. And I think there's a disconnect, which is part of why we're doing this. I think there's a disconnect because there's the old style of doing something and teachers should be paid here.
Right.
And when we're making these sacrifices to move internationally, those are huge sacrifices, and we're usually not getting anything back home. I won't qualify for retirement or anything in my previous countries. So we have to take care of ourselves and be wise in a different way when we're out there searching and find the right fit. Definitely.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Yeah. So are there anything that you see, any trends that you see about schools valuing most in teachers nowadays? Has that changed over the years?
Look, I think it depends on the school, and there are so many different types of schools are out there. So the people that I coach, I think the thing to understand best is that the great schools value people who build relationships and develop community. And it's something that a lot of people miss when they're applying. And I learned this when I went, I knew this, but the way that I've gained positions in the past was nearly always been through meeting people at events or visiting schools or all sorts of things. But I really learned this when I went to ISKL, because ISKL is a top school in Asia, and what they looked for in their educators was people who could build classroom community and people who would develop team relationships. And that came from, they've done extensive training with adaptive schools. So the teachers had a massive amount of voice, but it was extremely productive voice. So I think that, the number one thing that I tell people to do before they start even thinking about applying is to be really aware of who they are as a person and educator themselves, at what they bring to the puzzle. And a lot of people undervalue that piece of building classroom community and developing relationships. And it's massive. And you know yourself, Brandy, it's massive in relation. If you don't have relational trust, you have nothing. And that's our job as leaders when we go into schools, is initially to build relationships. So that's what the great schools are looking for. Now, then there's also, other schools that value other things. So sometimes it's to do with your curriculum knowledge. Sometimes it's to do with your particular background. Unfortunately, and I know you're really looking to support people with families. Unfortunately, for people with families right now, a lot of schools are looking to manage their budget.
Yeah.
And so the number of schools that can actually afford to fund multiple dependents is shrinking rapidly. When you hear of International School Bangkok, one of the best packages in the world, International School Bangkok is now reducing to one dependent per teacher. That's a significant change. So what's happened is not just economic, but it's also to do with mass movement. So back when I started in 1996, and I know you've been in the industry for a long time as well, they did have to persuade us to come out.
Yeah.
And now so many people want to come out that, I mean, Dubai salaries are less in a lot of schools than they were 10 years ago, which is completely shocking. And so that leads me to say that a lot of schools are looking for cheap teachers right now, which saddens me. It saddens me. And they're looking for particular things because they're branding. So if you're branding British, you're selling British, so you're hiring British. If you're branding American, you're selling American, so you're hiring American. Which, going back to what we talked about, cultural inclusion, it kind of undermines that a lot.
Absolutely.
But we have to understand that it's a marketplace.
Yes.
And it's a business. So I do, when I'm advising people, I say to them, know who you are and know whether the branding that might buy you, but also be wary and don't sell yourself short because, as you said, Tricia, we have to protect ourselves. And people are giving up a lot when they're giving up their institutional pensions or their national pensions and these kind of things. So it's you've got everything from, like I said, the schools who are looking for amazing teachers, amazing practitioners who can build relationships, and schools that are just looking for cheap teachers to fill the spaces and sell to parents. So that's why you're doing what you're doing. And that's partly why I do what I do as well, which is to warn people and to get them to ask questions and to think very carefully about what they're doing.
I love this advice so much. And I feel like it's not the standard typical advice you would get when you're Googling, like what do I need to do to prepare for an interview or to prepare for looking for a new job? And I'm curious, in your opinion, what is the importance of teachers showing the evidence of their impact and not just their effort when they're applying or interviewing?
So listen, the single biggest mistake that I see people put in letters of application is that they repeat the story of their CV. I have been teaching for 16 years and I've taught at this school and I've taught at that school. And then the second biggest mistake that I see people make is that they talk about what they're passionate about, what they aim to do and what they strive to do. Look, I'm loved and I'm hated. And I'm hated and I'm loved for the same reasons because I tell the truth. I'm not trying to create anything or generate anything or smooth anything over, but I tell the truth. So the truth is, if I'm going to recruit you, I don't care how passionate you are or how much you're striving. I care what your effects are. So unless you're going to show me how you make things better, then why should I be interested in you? And that's especially for people who are striving to get, up a notch onto the better schools. It's absolutely 100%. You need to show how you make things better. And if I ask people a question and I say, how do you know learning's happening? And they go, well, what do you mean? Then I'm like, I'm done. I'm done right there.
Answer.
No, exactly. So, it's like we have to understand that our role is to make learning happen. So any evidence that you can show as a teacher of how you make learning happen, or as a leader of how you've brought change. I support people who are developing leaders all the time. So we're always looking of where has your change impact been? How have you led initiatives? How have you brought things in? So when you're thinking about phrasing your CV and forming your letter, you need to think about not so much what you've done, but what effects it had. But also, so in the CV, it's what are the effects of what you've done. And in the letter, it's how did you do what you did?
That is great. Great advice.
Seriously.
I needed you last week, but at least it's signed on paper now. But no, it's really true. And I think that's a great mind shift for people to think. And that leads us into where I came across you in the first place. You manage and observe and add to many online thriving communities for international educators, or you put your voice into them. I think you run one at least. What are some of the things that you're seeing coming across, repeated themes perhaps, or what are schools and recruiters paying attention to right now?
So if you don't mind, I'm going to tell you a funny story first.
Please.
So, I've been running the PYP coordinators group on Facebook for many years together with Anne Evans and Ali Azzedine. And I've been a member of various international schools community, and my favorite one was International Single Teachers. because our sharing of the dating stories was so hysterical. And I met a few good friends through that group. But there was a point, I think it was actually when I was working in India, there was a point where that group just became a dumping ground for jobs and people looking for jobs. And I was like, I miss this conversation, this humor. So I said, okay, I'm going to start this group. So I started it over and I thought, I'll get a couple of thousand people. And it's gone quite crazy. So it's now over 22,000 people, I think we've got at the last month in this. So I called it Teachers on the Move internationally. And then I got a legal case against me by a woman who has got a recruitment firm called Teachers on the Move. And I said, fine. So I just changed it.
Okay.
So, over the years that I started that, and then it got really busy, I started curating resources. And so the reason my communities are successful is because I put up posts, I put up prompts, I put up information, I curate resources, I create facts, that sort of thing. But now I've got 8 admin globally on my group, various school leaders and members of the global majority community as well. And the thing that we've noticed and we discussed most is actually the vast number of people coming on for first-time recruitment and the vast amount of entitlement that we see. So the people coming from America and UK, it's horrific. People coming from America and UK, they come on literally with this idea that they're a international superstar and that they are meritorious they just come in with a list of demands. Or they come in very unprofessional and start just, it's very vague. And so one of the things we're trying to do in our group is say, if you're looking for a position, put up a professional post, describe what you do, like what your qualifications are, what you offer at school. But most often we'll see, one of the most recent ones was a picture of a family dancing across the road, holding hands. And it's a woman, with 2 kids and a husband, looking for a job internationally. And I'm like,
I remember reading the comments on that post, Kirsten. I was like, that's a choice I wouldn't have made. But
it's just like, this is the thing that we're really seeing. We're seeing a vast number of people, which we are actually invested in trying to protect and educate it.
Yeah.
But we're finding a kickback against us with our experienced international voices. And there's a lot of aggression coming out of one particular sector that I won't mention, but it's very, very aggressive. And it's this idea that we shouldn't be giving advice, or we shouldn't be controlling the conversation. And we're like, yes, well, we are controlling the conversation because it's our group. And because between us, I think we have nearly 300 years experience in the sector. So go figure. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And then the second piece that we're seeing, of course, is more people moving from or wanting to move from countries like the Philippines, India, various countries in Africa, and the difficulties that they come across in comparison, like in stark contrast to this entitlement issue that we see in from other communities. So navigating that is tricky, but we also struggle as well with certain recruiters. I literally this weekend putting a ban on all recruiters while I go through and have additional meetings with them, because on minimum they should be putting the conditions of hire, and they don't.
Yeah.
And I actually do have an agreement that all recruiters, not school recruiters but commercial recruiters posting up in my group, they have to agree to certain things, and people are not sticking to it at the moment, which annoys us because we're volunteering and we're trying to keep a balance, but they're making money, and we don't want people making money out of sending teachers to bad experiences.
Right, for sure.
Or schools that are, let's say, putting limitations on their hiring that are unfair. So there's a lot that I think the biggest thing we're seeing is that because the industry and sector is expanding, there's just a lot more layers in it at the moment, and trying to navigate that and support people to navigate that is we just need always more and more network and more information. That's it.
Yep. And social media, AI, all of that has just changed this whole landscape so much in the last few years. And I think some people forget like how they should act on some of these. These aren't people you know, you're trying to get a job from them and show up and be there every day. So
the culture has shifted.
Definitely.
Like now people are, you know, hiding behind keyboards, and there's all of a sudden this more like openness where before there was more professionality, I guess, professionalism.
And the use of anonymity. I mean, we had massive discussion about using anonymity in our group, and at first we denied it, but we got so much kickback from the community that we decided to allow it. But anonymous posting has really degraded our community in some ways, and on Reddit it's just horrific. It's absolutely horrific, and because there's no accountability for what you're stating, and it's horrific. I mean, I've been torn down on Reddit, and I just go on and I tell them, and they go she, and I'm like, well, she is here
and writing you now,
and I'm not afraid to say who I am. Here's my LinkedIn, you know, and that, because I'm like, if you want to be negative, show who you are. You know, I try not to be negative. I try to be constructive all the time. But it's you know, certain sectors of the population, they don't like to have somebody who perhaps does actually know a little bit more than they do. You know, trying to be sensible about it, which is all we're trying to do.
Yeah. So you describe your approach as well as constructivist and learning focus. I read in your LinkedIn bio. And also research informed. What does that look like in practice today?
So this started because I work with inquiry in the PYP. And what I realized as I kind of surf the world and work with various schools and educators around the world is that inquiry is hugely misunderstood.
Yes.
Inquiry is not research. Inquiry is based on constructivist principles. And the principles of constructivist are basically the learner creating and constructing meaning for themselves. And so, you know, we have this tension between the what and the why. I kind of situate my practice in the how. So because people get very confused, they think inquiry means that kids have to find out for themselves. And I'm like, no, the inquiry can be around something. Like you can put information out there, and then the inquiry is in like the how are we making sense of this and that sort of thing. So the research base is that there's a lot of misinformation out there, and a lot of currently popular pedagogies aren't research backed. They call themselves the science of this or that, but when you dig into it, there's not actually any research backing behind it. And so it's really fascinating. You know, I'll talk about the science of reading. Actually, the research on reading is that the single greatest factor in developing literacy is the number of visible books in the parental home.
Oh,
that makes sense. I mean, exposure is everything. Like
modeling is pretty much the highest, greatest influence that you can have on your child's literacy development. I was trained in Scotland, so I was trained quite differently from most people in the world, but I've been working with the development of reading from a long, long time. And I have proven time and time again that the way I approach reading will leapfrog over what anybody's doing with phonics training and these kind of things. And the interesting thing that I found in a number of schools, particularly those that use the English National Curriculum or American standards, is that you actually get asked to stop doing it.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, as I was told in one school, your students are halfway through the next year's work and the next year's teacher doesn't know what to teach them. So can you stop teaching them so much? And I was like, I don't. I just empower them to learn what they need to learn next. So it's really very interesting. A lot of what's happening in schools around the world. So, you know, there's a lot of controls, unfortunately, that come from national systems that we should be above in our great international schools. But unfortunately, that's not what's happening at the moment. And to get into a school that really is genuine about following what research actually shows us and practices that actually do improve teaching and learning rather than checking boxes and trying to get higher scores on standardized tests is it's sadly shrinking.
Yeah, you're right.
So those are the schools that I try to work with. And I do work with a lot of schools that are improving schools, which, again, sort of reflects on the recruitment side of things, because there are schools that have terrible reputations because of their recent history, but there's good leadership in trying to change, and there are actually opportunities to join and bring change. There are schools who have massive reputations that have recently changed, again, usually due to leadership change or budgetary issues or whatever. So that just, again, brings us back to the importance of network and information, which is, that's the major reason for our group.
That's awesome. I know, like we just did an episode recently that was all about when you enter our realm in the beginning, or when you're switching from one school to the other, the system you came from, but then you see the sea of terms for all the other curricula out there. And it can be an overwhelming alphabet soup, is what we call it, like you're just going through and all of the acronyms you need to learn and stuff. So we definitely have been trying to break that down for teachers. But I love what you say there, that, like if you're really looking at like the teaching and the learning, it doesn't, a curriculum is a curriculum, but it really isn't about ticking the boxes. Yeah. It's about finding out what's working with.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I think, you mentioned system, and we get that word a lot. People talk about the system, and the system is wrong, and the system is this. And I said, the first thing, and when I post a lot, I said, the first thing you need to understand when you enter into international education is that you're on your own.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is no system, and your perceived rights and your perceived understandings from where you come from no longer apply.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
So that, if you're choosing for whatever reasons, whether it's adventure, professional learning, giving your family a different kind of life, whatever it is, you have to understand the first thing you need to be is completely self-sufficient. And don't rely on anything for anybody. Don't rely on anyone for anything. Because you might get lucky. I worked at ISKL, and we had first-time teachers coming out from America. And I said to them, you have no idea where you've landed. And they were giving it this and that and the next thing about international education. I was like, no. You're either going to stay here for the rest of your life, or you're going to be crying a lot when you move to the next school. None of them believed me.
Yeah.
They all cried a lot on me since then.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, we're just going to take a little bit of a left turn, because I know that some of your newer experience is all about AI. Mm-hmm. And you've got a wealth of knowledge to share and guide educators in this realm.
Well, I wouldn't say that I have a wealth of knowledge. What I would say is I was probably one of the early experimenters.
That gives you a wealth of knowledge. Okay.
It was just simply out of curiosity. A friend of mine got into it really early in China, and we started experimenting, and we were playing with it.
Nice.
We thought we were going to become very famous for writing a novel about an international time traveler. But anyway, the main thing that we started using it for was to create teaching and learning plans. And to me, because I was then coordinating in this school in Bangkok, and I was working part-time as well, creating learning events for this EdTech company. So I actually sent ChatGPT to the CEO of this EdTech company. It's Toddle LMS. Yep. I said to him, hey, you chaps need to get onto this. And he said, Kirsten, what's this? And I said, this is the new thing. And look, here's how fast I can put up a PYP plan. So they got onto it. This was January, 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah. Wow.
And they got onto it, and so they were the first in the world to bring out AI inside their LMS. I have no idea how they do it, and I wasn't involved at all.
Their Toddle tutors are amazing. We use them at our school. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was significant in getting them the edge to get ahead of it, because I was like, you need to get this. So, but since then I've played with it a lot, and I think the main thing is that you need to be intelligent and you need to guide it, but it can save you a huge amount of time. And when I work with teachers around the world, particularly teachers who are coming up from local systems who haven't had the opportunity to travel and experience diverse schools as we have, it really can just expand their ideas, but you have to teach them how to use it, because I'm also seeing horrific examples of teachers just like literally plugging into AI, setting a plan and not giving it any context or anything at all. So challenge of our time is really AI literacy in so many ways. I'm a ChatGPT user, and I just transitioned from 4 to 5, and I hate 5 because it's trying to tell me how to think. It's trying to tell me what to do. And I literally, every time I go into a ChatGPT 5, I put, do nothing, say nothing until I ask you a question. I'm giving you information. Stop, and it really wants to. And what it made me think, I'm 57 years old and I was raised to be a thinker and I was educated to be a thinker. And I worry because I know what thinking feels like and I know what it means when something's attacking my thinking. I know what that feels like. But a lot of kids and people coming up, even young teachers, they don't have that feeling. They don't have that sense. So it looks like something that's going to save you an amount of time, but we do have to guide and quality control of our experience. And I think that's what a lot of schools are struggling with at the moment. Having said that, some schools completely rejecting it, which is a mistake. Because unless you're having the open conversations, then students and teachers are using it anyway, and probably in many cases badly. So I think that number one is massive, that schools should be having the conversations and defining how they want to use it. And number two is building AI literacy. So one of my former colleagues, Rachel Bodley, and her partner, whose name I forget, they've set up a group called Eblana Learning, and they've set up an AI literacy training program. It's fantastic. It's so fantastic that country governments are trying to steal it right now.
Wow.
So Eblana Learning, if people are interested in that, they're really, really good. What they've set up is excellent, and they're just high quality educators as well. The people behind it, they're very, very committed to what they're doing. So it is the of our time. I'm taking the kind of almost opposite parameter at the moment. I do work with people to get them to think, but I also am taking the perspective that in the age of AI, where are we bolstering the other ways of learning that AI can't help with? So it's kind of thinking about, when do you need AI and when don't you need it? When do you need IT and when don't you need it? And what are we actually doing to ensure particularly our early learners and our young kids are still getting that constructivist hands-on experience that they need, and that teachers and educator communities are intelligently supported to develop their skills in that? Because I see way too many early years educators that they're asking me for a program, and I literally will go, here's your program, and point to the kids in the class like, they're your program. Listen to them, watch them, interact with them. But what I'm learning is that early years educators, they're not skilled in developing numeracy. They're not skilled in developing speech. They're not skilled in developing literacy. They're not even skilled in developing relationships, because there's been this huge, heavy reliance in training through programs. And that's basically what I'm moving into next, in my next sort of echelon of things. So I'm trying to balance what I'm doing to support people with their careers with what I'm doing to hopefully keep learning practices strong in schools.
Oh, that segues perfectly. Well done. Tell us a little bit more about your networking group for international education recruitment. Like, what are its intentions, and what do you do yourself to support international educators to be successful and grow their careers internationally?
Okay, so the group, as I mentioned, was set up on a whim to just share about schools and share about jobs, and it's kind of grown beyond that now. So what I do is I kind of keep the group focused, and sometimes that makes me very unpopular, because we're not a group where you just come to whine and complain. We're a group where you come to get information and contribute. Yeah. So I think there's, like, as I mentioned before, the first thing I teach people is like, know yourself and as an educator and a person. Then it's kind of like, know your niche, know where you fit, know how to communicate, and also build network. That's, if you don't have network in our sector, you really have nothing. And so our group provides network for beginner educators, because there's people in there who've got more experience than I. And we're not able to give you information on every single school in the world or every single country in the world, and things are constantly changing. But it's a pretty good indicator if you come on and you put up a post in our group and says, does anybody know anything about this school? And there's radio silence.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good indicator.
But it's also rare to see radio silence. I was just showing Brandy before we connected with you how just in the last 24 hours, I think you have 5 posts of different people in the last 24 hours asking about this school or that school. And it's surprising. There's almost always 2 to 3 comments. And I love that level of support that so many people are getting.
Yeah. And some people are very generous. They'll say, message me, I'm happy to have a chat. There's all of that sort of thing. And so I've curated resources. I save posts and curate them into guides. And we have a massive frequently asked questions document. Myself and another lady, Kate McConnell, we put up free webinars. We just did one quite recently on crafting an international scholar application. We saved those on our groups. We try to sort of empower people to share their experience. So, every so often I'll put up a post going, where's great schools to go for families, or where's great schools to go for inclusive hiring, and we do that. And then towards the end of the season, I put up regular posts of, who's still available, who's still looking, and do you know anybody who could help them? So we do that. There's a lot of time and energy goes into that, and just moderating the group and trying to keep the comments constructive and positive and informative. But then on top of that, I started just with colleagues and friends, and then I was actually supporting a school to be built in Uganda. So I started doing it for a donation. But now I kind of do it semi-formally. So I'll look at people's application paperwork. I'll give them a little bit of initial feedback, give them the recording of the webinar so they can look at that. And then if they want more, I have people that review their applications, give them advice on how to improve their bios or letters. So we either do it, some people want meetings, some people I just give a whole bunch of questions to and they answer them. And then I get them to understand a different letter structure approach. So different things. A lot of it's mindset change as well. I had a guy connect with me recently, and he was pretty focused on a certain area of the world, and he got approached by a head in Bali who happened to know. And he said, I think I'll just use it as a practice interview. And I said, whoa. I gave him a bit of background, gave him some questions to ask. And 2 days later, he was hired and very happy. The lady last year, she wanted to go only to Portugal. Wow. She's been teaching in China. She's an art educator. She only wanted to go to Portugal. And she had certain needs, and she's younger than me but not by much, and through the sort of coaching we expanded her horizons. She's now happily ensconced in ICS Addis, fabulous school, and has bought a house in Portugal.
Oh yes.
And is going there every holiday. Wow. Which is actually for her financial health and her what she actually wants long term much more successful than for her to be working in Portugal right now. So part of the coaching process is mindset change. Part of it is getting people to understand their skills and capacities, where to look, where to put their energies, and part of it, unfortunately, is getting people over the hump of terrible experiences. I've coached several people out of dreadful positions. I'm currently coaching 2 people who are suing their schools. I'm not involved in the suing, but I'm just supporting them through it and through their next steps.
Wow.
There's a lot of difference in that. And then, some people contact me just because they're looking for PD. They're like, oh, I want to develop my leadership. Like, what courses would you recommend? And that sort of thing. So that will be the next set of resources that I'm putting together, so that anything that comes up as commonly asked, we just try to put together resources that people can refer to. I think that's similar to what you're doing yourself. But I don't sort of do school and country recommendations. I try to put people more in contact with one another for that, so they get recent and relevant.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And I know, as we draw to a close here, oh my gosh, we could talk to you for so long. I know this.
I have too much to say about anything.
It's awesome. So I know many of our listeners that we're kind of answering questions are kind of at the beginning of their overseas teaching journeys. And I think your advice today about the don't be too entitled, hopefully that resonated with them for sure. But what do you wish someone had told you before your first international move, if that's something you can think?
I think for me, I'm very different because of my first, because of the way I came into it. I went into it intentionally. That was my career direction that I chose from the beginning. It wasn't an accident. And so, but the thing that I think that is most important and that I wish I'd had more information or thought more about is financial provisioning. And I really encourage everybody who's taking that first step to look at their financial provisioning. And it's easy to think, oh, that's a better salary or a better life or better this or better that. But you have to understand, if you're giving up, maybe in the UK, I think it's something like 30% you will get when you retire if you've worked for 35 years. That's a huge amount that you have to replace and you have to plan for. So, thoroughly investigate. Andrew Hallam is fantastic. There are various other people around doing this as well now. But you really have to thoroughly investigate and plan. I'm okay. I have property. I've invested over the years in buying property, but it's still not easy. And that takes up a lot of time as well. So that's number one. And then the second thing that I say to people is not something that I ever struggled with, but a lot of people struggle with, which is be really open-minded about where you might end up. Because I see way too many people coming on and they're like, I want to go to Singapore. Not necessarily the best thing for you. And also Singapore, Thailand, Hong Kong, 3 most popular locations. So the competition is intense. And you can get, there's a fantastic school in Hua Hin, for example, in Thailand that very few people know about. It's really, really great. There's wonderful schools in Oman where you can save very good money and have a really nice life. But people, they latch on to certain things. And a lot of people want Dubai. And I would say actively, for about 50% of schools in Dubai right now are actively dangerous for educators if they're thinking about the future at all. I've got one woman case that I'm working on at the moment, and both her and her husbands are knocking 50. They've been in Dubai for 12 years and they have nothing. They have nothing.
Wow.
They have nothing because they've just only been keeping up with the cost of living and managing their family, and they're not high spenders. They don't go on fancy holidays. They're not champagne bar type people, that sort of thing. So, it's like that financial planning and financial awareness and being open-minded about where you're going, and think more about the experience of the school you want to work with, the type of people you want to work with, rather than where in the world you want to be.
Oh, that is perfect advice.
Fantastic advice.
Kirsten, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we would love to have you again to continue to share the wisdom that you've shared today.
No worries. Anybody can find me on LinkedIn or join the Facebook group. It's called International School Jobs and Recruitment Chat. Join on there and you'll find some resources. Hopefully by next year I'll actually have a website set up, but it's just been so busy between one thing and another.
Oh my God. Thank you so much, Kirsten. Okay. Have a great day.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.
We'd like to thank Kirsten again for sharing her experience and insight with us. I know so many teachers and leaders will connect with her perspective on growth, change, and community in international education.
And for our listeners, we hope Kirsten's story reminds you that thriving abroad isn't just where you teach, but how you grow through reflection, connection, and staying open to learning along the way. If you'd like to connect with Kirsten or explore more about the incredible work she does, we've shared more information below in our show notes.
And if you're thinking about your own next steps, head over to our platform, connectedglobal.org, to explore more resources that can help shape your international teaching journey. You'll find lots of helpful things like checklists, guides, and comparison tools, all designed to make whatever you're facing in this journey easier for you.
And remember, at connectedglobal.org, you can always book a consultation with us. We're here to help you navigate your career with clarity and confidence.
And if this episode inspired you, share it with another educator. Leave us a friendly comment, only nice ones, please. And subscribe so you don't miss more insider voices like Kirsten's.
Okay, so until next time, may your portfolios be polished,
your networks be strong,
and your professional growth be steady and international. We are?
Yeah, we're recording.
You sure?
100%. Are you ready?
Okay, all right.
So I'm going to say 3, 2, 1 and pretend as if I'm taking a photo of you and I'll snap it. Ready? 3, 2, 1.